Hi again, welcome back inside the Tier 4 studio here in Morgantown, West Virginia. For the Charleston Gazette Mail, I am Mike Casaza, and this is the Tuesday Taboo. Today I'm not going to ask a question, I'm instead going to provide a talking point, which is this game Saturday at Kansas State, it really might not mean a whole heck of a lot. Now, let's not take away from the obvious. A fifth straight win for West Virginia to end the season would be almost monumental when you consider where the team was in October. It would be a validation for the head coach and the constitution of the roster to recover like that at the end of the season. Remember, this was a group of players and a coaching staff that truly believed it could compete for a Big 12 championship. That's not the case, but a fifth straight win here at the end would really put them at the top of the next level this season. That's progress for West Virginia. A win for Kansas State would make sure that Bill Snyder does not have a losing season for the first time in his second go-around with the Wildcats, his last two seasons in his first tenure, sub-500 records. You would also think that a 6th win for Kansas State will be what would get the Wildcats eligible for a bowl. You would be mistaken. Because we are inundated with bowl games, we are now left in a situation where there will not be enough 6-win teams to fill out the 40 games. So what does that mean? You're going to have to take some 5-win teams to fill out the bowl roster. Kansas State will be one of those teams as long as it chooses to accept an invitation. So let's assume for a minute that West Virginia does get that 5th straight win, beats the Wildcats for the first time since 1930. What happens to Kansas State then? Well, by virtue of the academic progress report, they would be bowl eligible. They were tied for second with Missouri in the APR standings among the 5-win teams. Missouri said Monday it would not accept an invitation as a 5-7 team. There are going to be at least 2 teams needed to fill out the bowl rosters, which means Nebraska and Kansas State would get the first calls. Why do you care if you're West Virginia? Well, you figure if you win 5 straight games, you're going to have a really strong position for a postseason invitation. That may not be true. In fact, a 5-7 Kansas State team or even a 6-6 Kansas State team could be picked before West Virginia. Consider that Oklahoma is almost certainly in the playoff this year. After that, Baylor, TCU, Oklahoma State, some combination will go to the Sugar Bowl, the Alamo Bowl, and the Russell Athletic. Presumably, things can change. You might see a wild card like the Orlando Bowl picking West Virginia, but the common thought is that those 3 games will go to those 3 teams. That then brings you to the Texas Bowl. West Virginia would be the 5th team in the standings, and you think the 5th pick from the bowls. Not necessarily the case. Bowls are not obligated to pick an order. You might see the Texas Bowl pick Texas Tech and match the Red Raiders up with Texas A&M. That is a big-time game, a former big-time rivalry in the Big 12. Certainly the Houston Stadium would be filled with fans from both teams. Really, that's all that those games mostly care about. So then West Virginia would go to the Liberty, right? Maybe not. Mountaineers there last year. Bowls seek to avoid repeats whenever possible. And all of a sudden, Kansas State, even as a 5-win team, could be invited because as long as you're available whenever a bowl wants to pick you. That could send the Mountaineers all the way to Phoenix in the Cactus Bowl, perhaps against UCLA, Arizona State, maybe even Mike Leach and Washington State. So, as far as significance attached to the final score and ramifications beyond Saturday afternoon, there may not be a whole heck of a lot. The truth of the matter is, a lot of the maneuvering and the discussions could already be completed because the Big 12 knows who was eligible. The conference and its partners can get to work right away. That said, though, there is another bit of meeting that must be discussed. What if West Virginia were to lose at Kansas State? Does that take away from the achievements we discussed earlier during this 4-game winning streak? You would have to think, yeah, it probably would. Texas Tech is a good win for West Virginia considering where the defense was, not where it is now. It was starting to get back to its current form, but it was still at a low point and seemed to be in the crosshairs of the Red Raiders offense. Instead, handled things pretty well, contributed mightily to the win. The next 3 games, Texas, Kansas, and then Iowa State, were much easier for the offense and the defense. The 3 games that West Virginia should have won, even at the beginning of that 4-game winning streak. So, if you lose at Kansas State and you finish with just 1 road win this year at Kansas, what's been accomplished? You have a 7-5 regular season, a winning record, that's good. But West Virginia's done 7-5 before. It was supposed to have a winning record this season. Hard to say that West Virginia progressed as far or as much as it wanted to this season. If you're going to say that there's not a whole lot attached as far as postseason possibilities, then you have to look at what else is out there as far as attainable meaning for the team, and the most that the Mountaineers can grasp only comes through a win in Manhattan against Bill Snyder and his Wildcats. That's all for this time. I'll see you next time. For the Charleston Gazette Mail, I'm Mike Casazza.